Look, I want to ask you this. I mean, I'm happy to hear you talk to you. But, like, I think the other thing that's different from you and other people is that you haven't fallen into the abolitionist trap. By which I mean, like, I use the word abolitionist myself sometimes, but not, not all the time. But I think a lot of people would refuse to do the kind of research you're doing just because they say, oh, well, the point is to abolish it. Like, end of story. So it's simple. So we don't have to think about it, right? Like, and it's like, well, instead of just jumping to abolition as if that solves the problem or answers all the questions, you're kind of just saying, well, let's ask the questions. Let's actually figure out how things work. It's just very different from the abolitionist tone of so much of what's going on in veganism.
I think that's another frustrating fact too. Is just like a lot of I've gotten a lot of attacks lately from um different YouTubers and different people that watch vegan YouTube that are attacking me for not being. I think we've talked about this before about not being aggressive enough, and you know,
Right.
um, I've been called a shill a couple times this week. You'll be happy to know.
We're both on Team Shill. Great, yeah.
Yeah, we're Team Shill now.
Yeah.
Because of the interviews that I've been doing, apparently that means I'm trying to speak favorably about animal
Right,
slaughter.
right,
I
right, right.
don't know. I really don't. But yeah, I've been outright attacked in my comment section a lot, and mostly by other vegans
Of course, of course.
because I'm not an abolitionist. And it's not that I don't want to do
Right,
away with
right,
animal slaughter. Of
right.
course I do.
Well,
I
that
just don't think it's realistic to ask the world to change overnight. I don't think it'll happen in
right.
my lifetime.
But that you see,
I
that's
don't
right.
see.
That's exactly the problem. No, that's exactly the problem with the word abolitionist is that it becomes meaningless. Like, I don't think it's meaningful to say that you are not an abolitionist or that I am not an abolitionist. We would both ideally like to see things abolished. We would just
Right.
also like to speak in a realistic manner about what we're doing next week, in the next
Yeah.
6 months, in the next 5 years, the next 10 years. We don't see abolition as an excuse to not do research, to not do political organization, or to not do real activism. You know what I mean? And that's really what
Yeah.
it becomes. Like, when abolition becomes an excuse for pious ignorance, for not knowing things, not caring with things, that's what makes it counterproductive. But I don't assume someone's an idiot if they tell me they're an abolitionist. They may be a great person, they may be a great vegan activist, but it's just like the term has is not useful. And again, if people are actually attacking you by saying you're not an abolitionist, you're not abolitionist enough, like, what? Because you would dare to listen to somebody? Like, you would dare to let the other person speak? Like, is that the problem? Is that you should be screaming at the farm owner so that you can't hear his side of the story? Like, if that's what abolitionism means, then I'm against abolitionism. But it's not. It's not what the word means. It's just a kind of social habit that's gotten attached to it. Like, I would love, with elephants. Elephants were a part of my life in Southeast Asia. But, like, if you want to know anything about elephants, you got to talk to the people who are exploiting them. And the exploitation is gruesome. Like, apart from being vegan,
Yeah.
like, people break down weeping and vomit when they see what people do to elephant. I won't even describe, but some of the things are really, like, in terms of the amount of blood and stuff, are really gross. But if you don't want to be an ignorant, self-righteous asshole, if you actually want to do effective advocacy or activism or fundraising or run a charity or you want to run an elephant rescue center, those are the people you need to talk to, and those are the people who've lived with elephants. And normally, if you talk to them in a human way, maybe some of them are evil psychopaths, but most of them will have a whole range of emotions because they'll have had positive emotional connections to some elephants. And on the other hand, there will have been some elephants they will have literally beaten to death or something. And you can get all those gray areas. And at the end of that process, you can be an effective activist and you're not an ignorant, self-righteous prick. But sure, hey, easiest thing in the world. Do you want to abolish zoos? Yes. Do you want to abolish circuses? Yes. Do you want to abolish exploitation of elephants? Yes. So therefore, there's nothing more to talk about, right? Come on,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, and I think that also fits in with that attitude too of like like you just said, like the self-righteous vegan. There's a lot of judgment being passed in the vegan community, right? So I'm just not aggressive enough or whatever. So that judgment is holding a lot of people back from doing a lot of good, I think. Vegans need to stop judging other vegans and saying you're not vegan enough
Right,
because it's just not helpful.
right. But that's
It's just
well,
not helpful. It
it's
discourages people from doing real good.
but that to me is also a very Canadian thing. I mean, obviously it's going to be different in different cultures. Like the British piss me off. I don't, in general, I have bigger, even worse problems with English culture. But to me, like everything I saw on the left wing in Canada, and of course, like the Green Party was dominated by left wing people also. So much of the emphasis was on this idea of personal purity, and where like almost all your energy went into trying to exclude people from sitting at the same table as you. And I mean literally a table. Like it's not a metaphorical table. It's like who actually gets to come to this luncheon or who actually gets to attend this political meeting, where all of their energy was in like, are you a real socialist or what have you? And me and one other guy who were in the Green Party and doing ecological activism. At that time, I was strictly vegetarian. I really didn't even know the word vegan, or I'd maybe heard it, but like it. But anyway, I was like 90% vegan back then. But I was strict vegetarian. I was involved with ecology and stuff. And we were the only two guys who would openly say, like, I am not a socialist. I'm not a communist at those events. And
And then everybody falls silent and kind of gives you that look.
right. I mean, my friend, the other guy, I never got that extreme a reaction, partly just because I seem very self-confident. Like, I seem like I have the answers to questions. So people sometimes don't ask me questions because they don't want to hear the answer. But he just had a little bit less of that aura about him. And he was at one meeting like that where he said that. I had the same experience. But where people, like, really just gasped and said, well, what are you? Like, what else is there? You know what I mean? It was so totally assumed to them that like either you're a socialist or you're the enemy. They had never even thought about, what else out there or why it matters. But anyway, I don't know. So yeah, I just say I think that's especially a problem in Canada. Within veganism, I mean, look, so many games being played. You're not moral enough. You're not anarchist enough, because there's a lot of anarchist influence in veganism. But there's also you're not pretty enough. You're not thin enough. You're not, it's the lifestyle. So we got a whole range, right? And like I don't even feel insulted when people say I'm not intellectual enough. I'm like, damn straight. Like at least you hate me for a reason. Like, if you think I'm too stupid, good, because that's better than saying I'm fat. If the problem is I can't be an activist because I'm fat, that's not a conversation I want to have. If it's because I'm not enough of an intellectual or I'm stupid, that's okay. Now you're excluding me for a reason I can sympathize with. Great.